Yeah, I veered a little bit away. I wanted Kenneth to get in depth about that, but definitely want to talk more to you about the real estate and accessing that VA loan. It is the most powerful loan, right? You could actually purchase a house with zero money out of pocket. Again, if you're 10% service connected, you do not have to pay that funding fee. And I think something that veterans don't understand a lot of times is that they can utilize that a VA loan more than once, right?
Yeah, and I mean, and beyond that, it's not only just utilizing it more than once, it's being able to secure your family on multiple occasions. I think a lot of, again, I think in our most recent, we talked about home ownership and how important it is, and how important it is to the veteran community, because active duty members, we're used to relocating every 2 to 3 years or whatever the stint is. So now if you can have somewhere of a permanent location, that is a huge aspect of things, right? So, I actually want to talk to you and ask you a few questions in regards to that, because when we talk, you mentioned zero down. When you're talking about zero down, can you give the audience per se, what does that exactly mean? Because you hear things of everyone is used to, you go put $1 down and that's it. Well, obviously there's a little bit more to it. So if you can provide a little bit more information in that, because I know that's the area. That's where we flourish.
Absolutely, man. That's what I'm committed to, helping veterans access that loan. And now I think the misnomer sometimes is that you can literally have no money and bad credit and different things, in which you actually can in some regard, that the VA does not put a minimum credit score for veterans utilizing that VA loan. However, some lenders do put their own requirements on there. It's usually right around a 580 minimum credit score. And when we're talking about zero down, we're talking about the down payment. Okay. So what happens is that a lot of times when you purchase a house, you have to actually put a deposit down to get into escrow, right? So if you have a great realtor, and depending on the market conditions, you can try to work it around and say, hey, I'm a veteran, can you slide me in without a deposit, right? But, it's a very competitive landscape. Regardless of what you think right now, some people had a misnomer that, nobody's buying a house. It's enough people buying a house right now where they're not going to let you buy a house without putting a deposit down, right?
Yeah.
So you definitely need to have that deposit. So they call it an earnest money deposit. Usually that's going to be about 1% of the purchase price of the home.
Okay.
However, most sellers don't know that. So they charge whatever they want you for that earnest money deposit. You might see a $300,000 home and they ask you for a $10,000 deposit. Right?
Oh, wow.
Right, exactly. So again, if you have a good realtor like myself, I'm going to negotiate that down and say, hey, come on now. Come on now. He is a veteran. You have a veteran family here. That's way too much. Literally, he's putting no money down on the home. We don't want to hold up that much of his savings going into that deposit, especially because it's hard for you to keep the money anyway.
Yeah.
So we'll try to make that a reasonable amount. It should not be more than 1% of the purchase price of the home. And then,
so real quick. So number one, the earnest money deposit when purchasing a home under the VA home loan is negotiable.
Right.
It's number one. Okay.
Absolutely. You can definitely negotiate that. And that's even for people outside of the veteran space. And it's just easier for veterans to negotiate that because they don't have a down payment minimum anyway. Right.
Okay.
So for the veteran community, it's like, well, it's literally money I'm giving you now that I'm going to get back at closing in some different capacities as well. So you want to look at that. You also need to have money for an inspection and an appraisal of the property, right? That's going to be cash out of your pocket for that appraisal and inspection. So the inspection, you hire someone to kind of just look after the house, make sure, no water damage, there's no mold, there's no asbestos, and, different things of that nature. The pipes are in order. It's in good physical condition. The roof, AC, they're checking all those different components.
So let me ask you a question amongst that. So when you're talking about a home inspection, I've seen some homes sell without inspections. Is that something that you advise, or Is that something that, veterans, one, I always know in regards to VA regulations, you have to have a home inspection. But I've seen it where, not the VA home loan, but I've seen it where sellers or buyers don't need a home inspection. Is that something normal, or is that something?
That's typically something that you could do if you're not getting a traditional loan on a property,
Okay.
or if you're paying cash, you can go ahead and waive that a lot of times. But typically, your lender is going to want to see the inspection report, and they're definitely going to want you to have a home appraisal because they want to make sure there's a certification of value of that property to make sure they're not loaning you more money than that property is actually worth.
Okay, got it. Understood. So number 2, home inspection, appraisal, capital is needed.
Absolutely. And then the third thing that you really want to look at is that your closing costs on the property. Now, obviously, you have that appraisal and inspection. Appraisal is going to be maybe $600, for example. Inspection, depending on the size of the home, maybe $300 or $400. So that's only about $1,000 right there. But the big money goes into maybe any lender fees that you may have. You also have closing costs as far as title and escrow fees that are charged there for your title insurance and your escrows for your impound account and different things of that nature. So when you're trying to budget your closing costs for a property, I would say a good number is to look at 3% of the purchase price of that property for your closing costs. If you estimate 3%, hopefully you fall under that, but at least you have a really good estimate.
That's understood. But can we go back to the lender fees? Because I know sometimes for the veteran community it's kind of frowned upon sometimes. But I know lenders, they're still going to go ahead and charge those fees any which way they can, right?
Absolutely. They are. And especially with rising interest rates, what lenders are doing now is that they're charging to buy down the interest rate. Okay. So you have an opportunity to buy points. And basically, let's say the market rate right now is 7.5%, right?
Okay.
You don't want to pay that much on your monthly mortgage, and you want to buy down to 6%. So then they'll have some different fees that you prepay that interest, and that would be part of the lender fees there. And of course, those junk fees that you're talking about,
there we go,
are different fees where they literally charge you for just printing the paperwork. They charge you for all kind of things, initiation costs, all of this. They basically trying to charge you to pay their secretary is what they doing.
Gotcha.
They're not trying to take that out of their actual commission that they're getting on the property.
So they're passing down the ball. So basically kicking it down the road, kicking the can down the road. Hopefully you can pick it up, right?
Exactly. So if you're not looking at your closing disclosures, if you don't have a good agent just looking at that and really meticulously looking at those fees, you may end up paying some of those junk fees there. However, with the VA loan, they are pretty protective on veterans for some of those different costs.
Yeah.
But some kind of get hidden in there still. So you definitely want to make sure you have a good professional on your side to utilize that.
No, most definitely. And I know we have a pretty great team that can be able to analyze some of those loan estimates, right? To be able to provide you a little bit of assistance there, right? On basic junk fees to be removed or basic requests to be asked for, different things of that nature. So you always can contact us in regards to that. We'll be able to assist on that level to make sure that you aren't being taken advantage of, right? So again, Mr. Jones here, again, VA real estate advisor expertise. So we always want to make sure that we're being able to navigate that. So
absolutely. So yeah, the last thing I want to kind of tell them on that is you never want to go at the real estate transaction alone. Okay.
Wow.
Sometimes individuals want to try to save money, list the property they sell, or try to cut out the real estate agent, especially even on a new build purchase, right? And I do not advise it. Don't matter what you think, unless you're a real estate professional yourself or unless you have somebody that's a professional advising you, you're not going to be able to save money on a transaction by going at it alone. I mean, you're talking about something that you're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for, one of the largest transactions of your life. You want to go at it with the licensed professional, and even just to protect you in the event that you may have a lawsuit in the future, right?
Wow.
Now that goes under that professionals and their license, and they have insurances to cover that. So you do not want to shortchange yourself on that. Trying to get the least expensive person to sell your home. I mean, think about it when you go to McDonald's. Is McDonald's burger the same if you go to, a nice fancy restaurant here in Vegas? Don't they got like a restaurant here? It's like $100 hamburger.
Go to Gordon Ramsay burger.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
go to Gordon Ramsay. And you compare it against McDonald's, it's going to be a lot of different levels there, right?
Gotcha.
And then In-N-Out is like in the middle tier somewhere in there for some people, right?
Hey, so, you may get full, but the after effects may, I don't know.
Exactly. So definitely with the real estate, man, because you're spending so much money on that. Definitely look at that. And there's going to be different strategies a professional is going to be able to help you with, as far as if you're selling your property, knowing that the VA loan is assumable. And how to navigate that, right? So now, when we were just talking about the interest rates, now if you're a veteran selling your property, you can put your home on the market and actually transfer your interest rate to a new veteran or even a non-veteran in some cases to purchase your home as well. Now, if you do it into a non-veteran, it has some increased risk there, but that's something that someone like myself, real estate investment advisor, can educate you on.
Wow, hold on. Let's unpack that just a second. So basically, you mentioned that an assumable loan, right? So the VA home loan is an assumable loan.
It's
correct?
an assumable loan.
So explain what is an assumable loan on a basic level, please.
Okay, yeah. So basically, assumable loan means that you can actually have the person purchasing your house meet all the requirements from your lender and take over your loan with the remaining years that you have with your interest rate.
Wow.
Okay, so they still have to actually qualify, right? So you have a qualified buyer here, and they're just, instead of applying for a new loan that they already were pre-approved for, they're just going and utilizing those qualifications to take over your loan.
So they're just going to take your loan. So if a veteran has a 2.5 interest rate loan, and they are willing to have a buyer, another VA buyer, let's just make it easy, another VA buyer who's wanting to assume their loan and be able to take that 2.5% interest rate rather than going out to the market of 7% currently or somewhere around there, give or take, right? They can be able to take that on. Is that what you're saying?
They can be able to take that on. Now, the difference is you're going to have to negotiate that purchase price. So typically when we're looking at assumable loans, the way I advise clients is that, let's say you recently purchased a home in the last couple years, 2021, and all the way up to now, right? You haven't accumulated a lot of equity in that property, but guess what? You have a very low interest rate.
Wow.
So the purchase price versus what your loan amount is not a whole big old gap there, right? It may be about the same, or maybe $10,000 or $20,000. So what that veteran would do is they'll cash you out $20,000 at the closing table, and then they'll assume your loan for that remaining amount.
Veterans, thank me later. Okay, thank me later. That is a huge gem. I think if for our listeners, if for everyone out there, I really hope you guys pick that one up, because that is so valuable, and it's going to be valuable for you in the current day and for the future. But that was that right there. That alone could wrap this whole podcast up.
Absolutely, seriously. I mean,
no, that was huge,
right?
Man.
Because if you look at that, the difference between the example we just said, 2.5% versus like a 7%, we just saved you over $100,000
easily. Just over the life of the loan. You got to understand the life of the loan depend how long you're going to stay in that home versus 2.5% versus the 7%. Now you start working the math and the break even points of where you're going to save money. That's how you'll do so. But I know you'll be able to have obviously that printed out for them, be able to provide them that information, give them the numbers right in front of them, and make sure that, again, if your team can be able to knock things out, right? So.
Absolutely. Because we want our veterans to start being investment minded. Again, like we said at the top of the segment here, you can purchase a home with a VA loan more than once. Veterans can get into house hacking and all these creative strategies that we're seeing on YouTube and different things. So we want to encourage you guys to do that.